Back to Bjorn Territory, it's Doug again. I thought I'd take this opportunity to have a go at showing how I paint my minis and see how it goes. So I thought I'd show you my methods. So I undercoated in grey, a nice, quite a light grey really. Still pick out a lot of the detail in the miniature. All right, so I don't know about you guys, but I used to use corks for holding my minis, supporting them, and so I didn't get my fingers on them all the time. But the GW handle, I know there's another few versions, works really well, comfortable in my hand. I know they've changed it again, haven't they? But I haven't got the new one. I thought I'd have a go at this one. All right, so what I'm going to do, start with my flesh. Okay, I like painting in batches, kind of doing all the skin at once and then coming back and then doing the next layer. Just feel like I'm making more progress. I'm not the neatest of painters. I just like to get them kind of tabletop ready. All right, so I'm going to use a mixture of probably Citadel paints and Vallejo paints. See what my outcomes are like. So starting flesh. Making sure I'm getting all the corners. I'm not particularly trying to be too tidy at the moment. Just having a look from all angles, making sure I haven't missed anything. Palms are good. Okay, so flesh is done. Done all the flesh on all of them. Definitely not neat, but it's definitely in the right area. What I'm going to focus on now is getting the epaulets, the flashes in now before I forget about them. I've made the mistake on the rifles going, oh, I've got to get some details into them. So I need to think about it a little bit longer. So what I'm going to paint these guys up is a regiment I found at the Buffs, a Kent regiment, and I'm kind of from the south, so I thought it kind of suits where I'm coming from, what I'm on about. Do a little bit of research, find out about them. I found out they were definitely in the Peninsular War, fought at Talavera, so I thought this was a good regiment to pick for where I'm hoping to head for my new army. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely gone through patches where I have not enjoyed painting. And I don't know if it's not knowing a method or not being pleased with my outcomes. But I feel like I've reached a point where I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm happy with how they're turning out. They're definitely not, I wouldn't say I'm incredible painter. I would say I'm pleased with what I'm doing. I think that's kind of where we aim for, isn't it? We kind of want to be, right, when they're on the table, do they look cool? Are we pleased with them? Yeah, and you know, that's good enough. That's good enough. It's setting that standard of what you're appreciating being as a hobbyist, as a painter, depends what your thing is. I enjoy making and building. I find painting relaxing. I just oh, a little bit too much there, but hey, it's in the right area. I find it relaxing, but I tend to listen to music or podcasts or something like that whilst I'm painting. And I think I'm aiming for, when I'm painting, really, what's the saying? 3 foot fabulous. From 3 foot away, do they look great? Are you happy with them? And if you are, well, then you've done your job. You've done what you set out to achieve. And I think it's not being too hard on yourself, especially if you're starting out and you see everything you see online, everything you see when you can get down to your club or your hobby store or wherever you play. You know, there's a lot of really fantastic work goes out there. But I think it's when you're starting this out, giving yourself a bit of a break and going, well, I'm doing my best. You learn tricks, you learn techniques. I'm definitely learning as I'm going along. There's a lot of things that I don't know yet, and I'm picking out and having a go at. All right, so I'm going to crack on with my yellows, and I'll catch you in a bit once I've done all the yellow flashing. So I've done all the yellow on their epaulets and their cuffs, etc. I don't know all the technical words yet, so I need to do a bit more research. Obviously, I'm not an expert. By any means, this is my first little rodeo into Napoleonic miniatures. Now, so my next colour is white. Now, what I'm going to focus on, I'm using Vallejo off-white for this one, okay? What I'm going to focus on is the trousers. Now, okay, so using the off-white on the trousers, it's a bit watered down. So I tend to do 2 coats of most of my colours that I put on there. You know, it is right. I don't know if you guys have watched Duncan Rhodes. He used to be at Games Workshop, and now he's got his own painting academy. The videos are fantastic, so if you get a chance, he's all about 2 thin coats for most things. Build up the strength of the colour. Okay, so making sure all the white areas are done. So trousers, straps, and straps on the bag. And if they need any white bits, maybe on edges here. Taking my time. Although it doesn't look like it right now. It looks a bit messy, doesn't it? But, all right. Okay, I'm going to use Calgar blue for the water bottles. Just a light blue to start with. Onto the water bottle. All right, with a shanty bone, I just take a little bit on the tip. Use my little packaging plastic. Bit of water. So it's flowing a little bit easier. Prep my model. I'm going to focus on the bread bag. And that's the one that sits just below the water bottle here. So now it's starting to get a little bit neater. Okay, the next colour I'm going to use is Balthasar Gold. It's like a bronzy colour. It's just going to be for their shako plates and for the butt of their muskets. It's quite a dark colour to begin with, and when I've washed it later, I'll apply like a goldy colour on top, give it a bit of a highlight. Works quite nicely for me. Okay, the next bit, I'm going to use some lead belcher from Citadel. Water down, and I'm going to start doing the metal parts for the musket, so the barrel. Lock. Fire mechanism of the gun. If I have a bayonet, I'll do that as well. All right, the next bit, flat brown Vallejo for the muskets. I'll make sure I don't make any mess. Cover up the barrel that I just painted. Sides. Stock. We're going to look at painting bedrolls they have on the back of their packs, and I decided to use a London Grey. Okay, from Vallejo. Let's use the tip of the brush to get into the edge, so you don't go over that white line for the straps to the sides. Go on the other side, using the tip. Try to get that nice edge. Just the tip to get a nice edge. Again, down the middle. Okay, get in there. Just need now a bit of black for a few areas really. You've got, let's just get a bit of water on my brush, get this paint going. All right, it's a bit smoother. I need black for the backpack. Where else? Ammo pouch. All right, just gotta be careful now. I'm rushing a little bit, but take your time. Scabbard for the bayonet. That's just here. And shako. Oh, I nearly forgot. I need to do his boots, gaiters, etc. Okay, welcome back. It took me a little bit longer to do the black than I realised on all the pieces, but it's now for the red coats, the bit that I've been looking forward to anyway. So I'm going to use the Vallejo Scarlet Red to start with, and then wash, and then what I'll do, I'll tell you now, I'm going to highlight with the dark vermilion, just to give it a bit of a red, brighter red. So I'll be very careful with this, try not to make as many mistakes as I've done with the rest. Getting in all the nooks and crannies of where the red jacket is. Okay. I'll change brush to a smaller brush. Make sure it's evenly coated on my brush. There you go. And I'll just go around making sure I've got all the bits. Also, I'll finish that off, but I also want to put a little bit of texture, the bits in here. Okay, so red jackets are on. Did them for all of them. Starting to come alive now. I tidied up a bit of the colours. I was like, oh, a few mistakes here and there, but nothing too bad. I think I've got 2 more colours to do. Next one, the important bit, because they're light infantry, found out they need. So I'm just going to use intermediate green for every bit. So I'll start with a light green to start with. I'll wash it and see what that comes out like. Okay, so greens are done. Oh, not the camera. Next bit I'm going to do, I'm going to add the hair. I'm going to use, what have I got? German camo medium brown. Okay, got my small brush and the brown. Now, I've got to be really careful. The reason I choose brown for the hair, mainly because of the black shakos. I just don't want it to blend so much in. The colour. Might need to tidy up the shakos out after a little bit, but I'm not going to do that until I've washed them all, which is my next step. So I'm going to do 2 washes. First one, I'm going to use Citadel Reichland Flesh to do all the flesh. And then my second wash, Agrax Earthshade. I'm quite generous with the shading and let it seep into all the nooks and crannies. But obviously my first wash is all about the flesh. I love it. Drip it in and you start to see a bit more of the detail going on. I use this for the hair because it's like a light hair browns. The Reichland Flesh, I feel, gives it like a good texture to it, tone to it. And also for the brass plate, gives it a good orangey tone. All right, so that's the Rakoff Flesh done. I'm quite generous with it, but you don't really want it to pull. You need to make sure you're moving all the shade around so it doesn't get like all soaked at one corner. Now with the Agrax, I am just going to plop it on. And it will end up looking a bit like a mess. Okay. But what it's doing is getting in all the nooks and crannies. Okay. Get a little bit of that detail back into the miniature. Oh, don't get it on the face. All right, so wash them all. I think if I just bring you down, there's a little view of the rest of them, all washed. Okay, now that the washes are dry, I'm just going to add in, go back in with off-white. Be careful not to go over everything, just to pick out where the shadows, where the highlights are. Keep the shadows that were created with the wash. Everything pop again. And the next bit I'm going to use dark vermilion just to highlight a bit of the red, tidy up a bit, adding in some of the details. I'm not filling in the whole red. I'm just where I think the light will hit it. I'm making that part of the uniform shine a bit more with the vermilion red. So the next bit is just a little bit of yellow, go back over, highlight some of the areas that are on the edges, being really careful to keep it neat. Okay, now the next bit is flat brown back onto the musket, just to make the brown of the wood stand out again. So taking a really careful, steady hand. I'll go over it, I still want to keep the shadows on either side. Tidy it up. Now I'm going to use the oily steel just to highlight the metal on the barrel. I'm going to go back in with a bit of dark green because the feather's a bit brighter than I was expecting. So I'm just going to dry brush it a little bit with a darker tone of green onto the feather. Okay, the next colour, I'm going to put a bit of Retributor Armour as a dry brush on the brass, just to add a bit of texture, make it stand out a little bit more. And if I can get back into his, just under there, we have a bit of brasses. Okay, and the next colour, second to last, is a little highlight with Kiselev Fresh. So I focus on the bridge of the nose, cheekbones, edge of the earlobes, and the knuckles on the hands, so they start to stand out a little bit. Alright, try and get this cheeky little ear in as well, without getting paint on everything else. Okay, the last bit just need to edge highlight the black with a little bit of grey, and also need to edge highlight the ammo pouch as well. Dry brush it a little bit. Bedroll, I use the same because it's quite a light grey. And the boots and the bayonet, and a little bit on the shako. Okay. I've decided to base them like this: light infantry, 3 to a longer base, and my casualties, I just thought I'd make them as markers on a bigger base, and the guy that's standing, I thought I'd have him on a single base. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use the technical Sterling mud to begin with, on my basing, and then I'll take you step by step. Okay, so I've based first layer with a bit of sterling mud. Tried to blend in an inch of bases, the metal bases into the plastics bases. Used a bit of thicker mud. It's coming out quite nicely. Takes some time. I'm not really that careful with it. I don't mind if it gets on the boots a little bit. Got to let that dry now. It's going to take a bit of time, and then start adding some flock. I like that. Okay, I've decided to base them like this. Light infantry, 3 to a longer base, and my casualties, I just thought I'd make them as markers on a bigger base, and the guy that's standing, I thought I'd have them on a single base. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use the technical sterling mud to begin with on my basing, and then I'll take you step by step. Okay, so I've based first layer with a bit of sterling mud. Tried to blend in an inch of bases, the metal bases into the plastics bases. Used a bit of thicker mud. It's coming out quite nicely. Takes some time. I'm not really that careful with it. I don't mind if it gets on the boots a little bit. Got to let that dry now. It's going to take a bit of time, and then start adding some flock. I like to add a couple of different layers of flock and bits and bobs on top. I'll show you. Okay, time for a bit of flocking and basing. So what I've got a little combination of fine little stones, bits of cork to get some texture on there, and I use a bit of PVA, and just gonna use an older, this is a cheap paintbrush. I just use my stick it on, gluing. So I've got a bit on. I've got a little pot, and I'm just going to sprinkle some of the materials that I wanted on. Keep it in here, so basically I don't get it going everywhere, all over. So I'm happy with the amount I've got. Flip it off. That's to one side. I'll do that for all of them, and I'll come back and do the next layer. Okay, so I've done all the gravelly dirt and bricks that I'm going to put on the bases. Now I do 2 different flocks. I do 2 different flocks now. First one, I'll put a really fine flock, this one. Same process, using my paintbrush. Get on the white glue where I'd like the fine flock to go. Thinking about what kind of textures I have, etc. Then I use my pot again. I scoot it like so. This time I don't shake off as much. Check it, think, all right, there's certain areas that need a little bit more. Go back in with the glue. Get the first one done. All right, starting to come along. All right, bases look a little bit more interesting. Now I do a finer, well not finer, longer flock. Okay, I just flock with a little bit longer stuff. All right, I'll do a similar process, adding on a bit of the white glue into some of the gaps, a little bit over the last bit of flock as well. Good thing about the white glue, PVA, dries clear. I still want some of the mud to come through in places, so it looks a bit worn, battered, churned up. And I'm only doing this in small areas, just to see the different textures come through. Here's my little pot. Scatter a little bit in places. Get a couple of different shades of green going on the base. So get my flocking pot out of the way and these lovely turf little stickers that you can get in strips. And what I do, I just break a little bit off. Got a nice gluey sticky bit in the bottom. I separate them out and just add a bit of focal point on the base. So it'll be cool. Just stick them on. As well. Okay. It's got to dry and settle down, but a bit of depth for the base. So painted miniatures and based. Hope you liked it. I've definitely learned a little bit on the way, and I hope you've kind of picked up a few bits. I hope you like what I do. Yeah, like and subscribe if you're enjoying what I'm doing. I hope to carry on showing you some different techniques maybe, or learning from you guys as well, learning from the community, what else to look out for, what approach. Hope you like it. Take care of yourselves. Bye.